to Bold Moves Radio. The show is Prudent Woman with myself, Rulani Baloyi. You are welcome. It's a blessed evening, and we're grateful to have you. Thank you for joining us. We are looking forward to having a wonderful show with you. And thank you. And my apologies that in the past 2 weeks I was not here, but I know and I was participating where I was, and I have seen we had a great show last week, and our apologies for the previous week that we could not go online. Thank you for joining us. Those who are joining us on Facebook, thank you. You can continue to converse with us through the comments, and those of you who are on the YouTube pages, you can put down your comments, your questions for tonight on the comments section. And thank you for all our listeners and our viewers who have now subscribed to our YouTube channel. Thank you so much. We would like to say thank you very much. And we know that it is beneficial to you because as and when Bold Moves Radio goes on air, you are able to be with us. You are reminded of the different shows that we are having throughout the week. And I trust that indeed an African child's flag is being raised high, and we shall never remain the same. Thank you. And all of you who are joining us, listening to us on Bold Moves Radio, you are welcome to send through your questions, your comments on 081 358 8745. That is our WhatsApp number for Prudent Women. Tonight, I'm excited because we are going to be talking on a topic. Of course, it's not a good topic, but as prudent women, because we understand that we continuously empower ourselves, give ourselves information so that we are ready to respond to any challenge that comes before us. I am excited that we have tonight with us right here on studio. I have Sis Mary from Child Welfare. And on our streaming device, we have Sis Patience. She is from, she's the coordinator for gender-based violence and femicide in the Capricorn district. Tonight, they are going to be empowering us even as we commemorate gender-based violence and femicide as the 16 days of activism, because we are saying it is only when we are aware of the challenges that we have that will be able to respond to them appropriately. I would like to apologize upfront. Ceci Patience will be joining us as we continue. Says Patience, the team in the studio is saying it seems everything is sorted. Can you please greet the audience? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, and good evening to all the audience of Bold.
Patience, can you?
Yes, I can hear you.
Says Patience, you can continue talking to us. It seems we are not yet. Says Patience, greet the audience.
Good evening to all the Bold Move audience. I can hear you very well.
Okay, our listeners and our viewers, you will bear with us. Just give us few minutes. We'll be right with you. We are just trying to sort out Sis Patience sound. We're not able to get through. We know you can hear her as well. Sis Patience, greet the audience.
Good evening to. Yes, I can hear you, Sis Rulani.
Patience, can you talk?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, the viewers can hear Sis Patience very well. It seems it's us who cannot hear. So you are privileged. Sis Patience, the viewers can hear you. It's only us here on the studio. But unfortunately, because this is supposed to be a conversation, we cannot go ahead because the audience can hear you when we cannot hear, because I will not be able to coordinate the discussion. So I would like to say, bear with us, listeners. Just give us few seconds. They are working on it. Maybe in the meantime, I can be talking to Sis Mary. Sis Mary is from the Child Welfare. I would like to give you this time, Sis Mary, if you can just greet the audience.
Good evening. My name is Mary Maluleke. I'm from Child Welfare South Africa, based in Limpopo. My office is right here in Polokwane. Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much, Sesmeri. And thank you, of course, for taking your time to come and talk to the Prudent Women in Bold Moves Radio. And we appreciate it. And I know this is not the time for work. You took your time outside your working schedule. And before we went into the show, we had a wonderful discussion. But one thing that I got is that you are overwhelmed with the work that is before you. And we know as a country that the resources that we have are not will never be enough. We are overstretched. And when we're talking with Sesmeri, I said, I assume you are responsible for the whole province. And she said, yes, we are responsible for the whole province, but we are never able to take care of the whole province because of the amount of work that one has just in the region where you are based. So we appreciate you, Sesmeri, for taking your time. In your words, Sesmeri, as we commemorate gender-based violence and femicide, before we get deeper into our topic for the day, I just want you to tell us what will you say is the significance of commemorating these 16 days of activism against gender-based violence?
I think the significance is that as a country or as a people, we need a reminder now and then of the pandemic that we are dealing with. For me, as much as it's not enough, but this is just a reminder to the country that there is such a thing so that we do not go on as if we don't care or it doesn't exist, because it's something that we live with on a daily basis. So 16 days are not enough, but it's good for as a reminder. We actually need
more days.
the whole year. Yeah.
And actually, that should be the attitude.
Yes.
We should be saying no to this throughout the year. It cannot stop. I remember when we were in the lockdown, our very own president said, there's another pandemic that we're dealing with, and one that is much more challenging than even COVID-19, which was gender-based violence. So you see, it's something that we have to work on. And I'm grateful tonight because the two guests that we have are social workers, people who work on a daily basis with situations. They're exposed to different situations. And I feel for people in this profession because, even as an individual, whenever I experience a painful experience, not even to myself, observing it or witnessing it, it gets to you so much that at times you are unable to even go home and enjoy yourselves. But these people have offered their lives to serve the nation and continuously witness all these things. And at times they are told about the experiences of even the vulnerable. And no one is giving you support, no one gives you counseling at the end of the day, but all of us, we expect you to be rendering the service. Thank you very much. The team in the studio is saying, Sesim, Patience, you are now fine. Can you please talk to us, greet the audience?
Good evening to you, Sister Rulani, and the audience of Bold Moves. I'm very delighted to be here in the midst of 16 days of activism for no violence against women and children.
Thank you so much, Sis Patience. We are excited to have you, and we trust that the Prudent Women will never be the same. They will be ready and will know how to respond in situations like this. And responding is not only to your loved ones, but this, to me, Sis Patience says, it's all about Ubuntu. If we were to continue with the spirit of Ubuntu, how we were raised, how our forefathers viewed life back then, we will not be having this pandemic. I would like you, Ceci, Patience, just for you to tell us the significance of commemorating the 16 days of GBV.
Thank you, Sister Rulani. Maybe also to emphasize that during the presidential summit on the 1st and 2nd of November, the president has then declared GBF the first pandemic. Remember, during the COVID, it was declared the second pandemic, but now is regarded as the first pandemic. So what we are emphasizing as the sector is that it should not only be between the 25th and the 10th where we commemorate the 16 days, should be 365 days, where all of us are saying we are ready to fight the GBV or the scourge of GBV and F as it is. So it is important that at least during this period, we are able to put awareness and emphasis on the legislations, the protocol and procedures, as well as the assistance that we are providing as a department, as well as civil society organizations.
And I'm excited tonight because when we were talking before, when we were planning the show during the week, you also agreed as the two professionals to say, most of the time when we talk GBV and we think of the 16 days that has been set aside by the country, we tend to focus more on the adults. And we agreed that for this show, we should look at the child's perspective. When we talk gender-based violence and abuse, we should focus on a child. What is it that we expose a child to? When I was doing my research was to realize that for one to become a victim of abuse, it's not only when they've been a direct victim, but even when they are an indirect victim. I would like to invite you, Sis Mary, to highlight to everyone who has just joined us. We are talking on gender-based violence, but our focus is mainly on the child. We're going to be talking on how it affects a child and how, as women, and I know we have men who have joined us, how as society we can assist our children to know the difference between the acceptable and unacceptable treatment, because it starts there. They need to be able to differentiate the two, and again, how to respond. And also, how do we now make use of the resources, the declaration by the president, to make sure that we put a stop into this? Because it's not government alone that will be able to fight this first pandemic, but it calls upon each and every South African to fight it. So, Sesmera, I would like to invite you. When we talk abuse, what will you say it is from the social worker's point of view?
Abuse is a whole lot of things that we have normalized. It's a whole lot of things that we are justifying. It's a whole lot of behavior that we don't want to talk about. We get a form of abuse in the form of physical. We have normalized that beating up a child, it's acceptable.
Yes.
We think that when we're beating up a child, we are actually disciplining them, but that is not an acceptable behavior. We have normalized that shouting or raising your voice when you talk to your kids, it's normal. And we shout out of anger, we shout out of frustration, because parents are actually overwhelmed.
Yes.
So when they are respond to whatever kind of behavior the child is showing, they respond emotionally. And we have seen it to be normal that as a mother you should be shouting, but it's not an acceptable behavior. So we have normalized it, we justify it. We even go to an extent that of saying that when you spare a rod, you spoil a child, meaning that you are justifying that you should be beating up a child so that they don't get spoiled. But
there must be a balance.
There must be a balance. What we have witnessed is that you can beat up a child to a point of physically harming them. But as a society or as a country, we have kind of accepted that kind of behavior as normal. Abuse, it also take a form of a sexual nature, which we hardly talk about. And it's unfortunate that most of this sexual abuse towards kids, it happens within a home, a place where there's supposed to be love, a place where children are supposed to be running to for safety, but that's where it's all happening. So for me, abuse is a whole lot of behaviors that we have come to normalize, justify, and say nothing about. So in a nutshell, that for me, one more thing that I'm forgetting is that we're also normalizing that when you are going to a party or you're going to a tavern or you're going to town, you can leave your children with another kids, or you can leave your children alone.
Yes.
And that is another form of
Of
abuse
abuse.
that we normally see in the villages. Is there kids are just there alone, and we neglect our kids, and for us it's normal.
Phew. So it's broad.
It is very
So
broad.
one should be intentional in trying to find a balance. That's what I'm getting from you, says Mary, that there must be an intentional decision that one takes to say, I have to be intentional in checking the balance between accepted and unaccepted behavior that we tend to portray before our children. So what I'm getting from you is abuse can be done even by me, believing that I love my child.
Exactly.
And in the process, I destroy them.
Exactly.
And
Yes.
it's very important that prudent women, everyone who's watching us, we take into cognizance what she's saying. Because if you look down and search yourself, you may find that you are also an abuser, but you are not aware. And when you read on statistics, it's saying that violence, it's increasing. That is the worrying part. And I tried to process it in my mind to say what may be the leading causes to this increase in violence. Can it be because of access to information and material like movies and all these things, social media? Or can it be the demands of society that are there? Because most of the things that you were saying, says Mary, to me, it's because as parents, we get to be overwhelmed.
Yes.
As parents, we are expected to do way above what we can carry even ourselves. Sometimes you don't even think, because there's no school for parenting. You wake up and you have this child. Now there must be a balance and you must provide for them. I think that's where you find one leaving a child by themselves. But it's through awareness like these ones that we should be able to say, this I will not participate in because I understand that it is abuse. I understand that it will damage my child. Says Patience, I would like to invite you. From your professions, I know you deal more with this type of situations. What will you say, more especially in our province? I know we have people from other provinces watching us, but I would like to believe the statistics is there as well. What will be the most prevalent forms of abuse in our province that you are observing? Says Patience, can you hear me?
Yes. The most prevalent form of abuse that we are experiencing as Limpopo, it's usually emotional abuse as well as physical abuse. And to some extent, you will have the high number of sexual abuse or cases. And you'll realize in the last quarter, as the province, we had Mankweng Police Station, Seshego Police Station, Giyani, as well as Leboagomo and Kando, forming part of the highest top 30 with regard to rape cases in Limpopo. So we have a variety of cases that are there, more especially emotional, physical, as well as sexual abuse.
The towns or areas which she's quoting, for me, I see one thing in common. It's they tend to be more urbanized, which means the people residing in such spaces have got much more responsibilities, and the population is huge. But again, I realize that it's the lack of Ubuntu. In the cities where we stay, your neighbor, you may know them by the car they drive, but you find that you have never really spoken to each other. They are just your neighbor. But in the olden days, you'll know everyone. And not to say that these things were not happening, they were happening, but at least there was some form of responsibility in a community to say a child is a child to everyone in the community. But today things have changed, and even our living setup exposes us to a number of things which, as people, we have not yet even gotten to a position where we address them. And, I still say we're talking abuse, most especially looking at the child. And it calls upon each and every one of us to fight this pandemic. The worrying part is that as long as we do not fight it and a child is abused today, tomorrow a child becomes an adult and they're likely to portray that. I would like to bring something that was in the news in the past 2 weeks or so. That actually touched me. A mother, I will not mention the name, a celebrity mother, whose son abused his girlfriend or whatever they called each other. But what I loved from this mother, when people were talking, she immediately said, I would like to believe it may have happened, but I apologize because as a mother, I raised him in the presence of an abuser, but I did nothing. And that's why today, Prudent Women, I said, let us focus on a child. She said she was in an abusive relationship. The son was observing it, but she never thought the son needs help, because that's what we do as society. When there's abuse, when there's GBV, we focus on the woman. We focus on whoever it's happening to and forget on those ones who are indirectly affected. Says Mary, when we talk about someone who is a victim, but indirectly, what will you say will be the most important thing to be done for such a victim?
I think for such a victim, they need support so that they do not continue the cycle of abuse. Because as you were saying earlier, that what might be the cause or the contributing factors towards this kind of abuse, we may not really find what the cause is, but if we look back, we might trace the cycle. Yes, so you might trace the cycle to saying the mother or the father was in such kind of situation. So the person, the victim who is directly who is witnessing violence, they need support so that they can break out of that cycle, so that they can now continue, because it's damaging. It's damaging for children to be either directly abused or to witness. They grow up with, they don't trust anybody.
Yes.
They don't have a good self-esteem. They don't have a good perspective of the world. So that kind of victim needs to be supported so that they can actually be as normal as they can be and not continue in the same way. So the support or the counseling or in however way it comes, but as long as it's gonna at least help that victim to not continue with it and to live a normal and healthy life. So I think they need support most of all. Yeah.
What I'm getting from you, Sis Mary, is that it's important for the child or the person who is indirectly witnessing or becoming a victim to be made aware that this is abuse.
Yes.
Because what I get is that sometimes these abusive elements encroaches in, and we are never in a position where we tell that this is wrong. And it's very important. We even liken a child to an empty tape, to say as they grow, we record different things. But unfortunately, we never go back and say this that you have just witnessed was not right. And looking at all of us, how many times do you shout at each other in front of the children? And how many times do you go back to them and say, my son, what happened? Mommy was angry, but we forgave each other and it was wrong, which I think is very important. But says Mary, I would like to invite you to tell us, I think this is a dilemma that all of us has. You see the situation that I've just said, to go back to them and apologize. it's very difficult because we were raised in a way that an elder is always right. Unfortunately, that's how we are. And we cannot move away from it, but we can change it. We can intentionally change it if we know the benefits of changing such a narrative. Says Mary, says Patience, if you can tell us, how does now, as a parent, how do I go about ensuring that my child understands the acceptable and unacceptable behavior? How do I now talk about these things?
Oh, thank you, Sis Roland. Maybe one thing that I wanted to emphasize more is that when we talk about children, remember when you give birth to a child, your child is like a bank.
Yes.
So in your bank, you'll have to deposit the money for you to withdraw. So what we usually deposit in our kids, it's what reflects it's the reflection of what we're going to get to our kids as adult or young adult. So it means if you deposit violence, you are likely to go and receive violence. And of importance is that GBV talks about issues around power and control. He who provides actually is the one who does not make mistake, is the one who will take decision, would not even reach a stage where they would have to apologize at a later stage. So of importance is first when adult acknowledges their mistakes. So it's not good enough that we had fought in front of you as kids, so we apologize, we acknowledge it. The first thing is what made you do it in front of the kids? Because the kids will then understand or used to the idea of no, we can do this and later apologize. Apologize is acceptable whether the behavior was right or wrong. So it means we have as parents, before we can even do anything, try to think best of our situation before we respond. So it means we need to go back and say, is this worth enough? Is it worth discussing? Again, of important when we deal with children, that with children, we need to go back. We do not have to discuss issues with children when there are problems. So the problem of our parenting styles as Black Africans in majority is that we only discuss issues when there's a problem that emanated. It is important with parents that as and when you're parenting children, you need to go back to them and ask them, where do you feel safe? Do you understand what is abuse? Do you understand what is proper language? So that they understand. You don't go back and they realize, no, but this thing has been happening 16 years ago. I did not know that this is violent. I could have reported it. So the first thing that we need to have is to have that proper discussions as parents, guardians, and caregivers. Before they even go to the social worker, they should have had this discussion among themselves as family members so that they know what is right, what is wrong, what is it that we can tolerate. And as social workers, as they come to us, will then use what we call the play techniques in terms of your robot, in terms of your histogram and other aspects. But it should start with us in our households.
Then it says to me, what's more crucial is communication. And it goes back where I said, what may be the problem? The problem is access to information, but no one is there to assist these children to understand that the information that they got from outside, is it correct? What is it good for them? Because we are not talking to our children. We are more involved with a whole lot of economic activities, as you said, and as Mary also elaborated to say, it's about providing. We tend to just focus on providing and leaving them outside. And I see when you were talking on the acceptable and unacceptable behaviors, I see, says Zuni, one of the prudent women, saying, what happens to a mother who is protective of a perpetrator, who sometimes is a boyfriend, and testifies against the child? The child. I would like to believe my understanding for a question is, you saying there's a need to talk with the child to understand and also to tell them about the right and the wrong behaviors that may be displayed before them. But then in this case is the opposite, because the mother who is supposed to be protecting the child is now testifying against the child. I would like to link this question with a question to say, now you suspect a child has gone through a certain abuse, for the ease of our discussion, so that we are focused. I will talk about sexual abuse. You observe or you are suspecting. How do you now go about it?
You mean you are suspecting that it's happening?
Yes.
When you suspect that it's happening, please report it. Please break that silence. Whether it's true or not, let the investigation shows. Because if you're saying I'm suspecting, but I'm not sure, so I'm not reporting. What if it is happening and you're not doing anything about it? Because remember, it's very rare that someone will be sexually abused in public.
Yes.
So it's always done in secret. So you will never know for sure that it's really happening. So please report it. Go to the nearest social worker or to the nearest police station so that the investigation can be done, and whatever is true comes. And when you are reading the comment there from the viewer to say a mother can protect the boyfriend, it happens. It happens because I think as women we have become so desperate to save our marriages or our relationships, and we immediately, because when we're thinking that this person I know, so I cannot do this.
Yes.
So when it happens, because maybe I value my relationship, if I say something against the boyfriend or the husband, I may lose the relationship. So I may, because I cannot prove it, I may tend to protect him.
Yes.
Yeah, so that I don't lose. I don't lose the boyfriend. But imagine the kind of damage that we are doing to the child, because at that point, it's very rare that now your child will trust you.
Yes.
Now your child will feel protected or feel loved in any other way if you cannot protect them against this. So I agree with the viewer there. It happens. We've seen it happen a lot. We've had it happen a lot because we want to protect this relationship. For some reason, it becomes more important than
than the children were brought along.
Yes.
And to be honest, with a partner, you can lose a partner and gain a partner tomorrow.
Yes.
But with a child, you cannot lose a child and gain another child. And with a partner, if you try to keep them, you will never have them, because they know how much you can compromise. And to me, it says they do not value you because they want you to compromise your child.
Yes.
They want you to protect them for doing the wrong things. But again, as we were talking about Ubuntu, the responsibility that is laid upon society, we tend to observe as patients that you find that in a community, people are aware of what's happening, but they tend to keep quiet. Is there any legal requirement or anything that can be done to people who keep quiet and they see someone who's vulnerable, like a child, let me talk about a child only, who is vulnerable and cannot make decisions of their own, or they do not know how to help them, but they keep quiet?
To your question, just to go back to the issue of the mother who will be protecting the child, I would always not be very quick in judging that the mother is protecting the child, because we have something that we call cognitive dissonance. And cognitive dissonance is when you have the truth about this person or how you know patients, and now you are told this new information about patients. So for the former truth or old truth to be replaced by the new truth, there should be something that we call cognitive dissonance, which means there will be confusion, there will be denial. People would not believe that the partners that they've slept with, the partners that is very kind, would be the very same person who will be doing that. So what we emphasize more is the parents should actually go and look for counseling. The child should look for counseling. What is more interesting now is that with the new amendment of the Domestic Violence Act, it gives an obligation to everyone to go and report the case of abuse. And there's also a fine if you do not report and you are aware that there's an abuse that is taking place and you do not report. So that is also a criminal case. So everyone has the responsibility to report such case to police officers, to social workers. And what is interesting more now is that initially as social workers were not given an opportunity to go and do the protection order for our client. But now with the new amendment, it allows the teacher, any person with a mutual interest to the child, the police officer, your social worker, psychologist, anybody who would be in contact with the child and serving in the best interest of the child, can now go and open the case against the perpetrator as well as apply for protection order.
They cannot be able to win this pandemic or fight it, but it needs all of us. You talk parents, society, we have to be on board. We need to fight this together. We have had, I would like to believe, Prudent Women, you've heard how also, as we commemorate 16 days of activism, you shouting at that child, you taking them from back and forth, slamming them against the door, it's abuse. So some of us here, we may find that we are perpetrators. So I'd like to believe through this awareness, we are all going to repent. We are all going to be prudent women who do things knowing that there is a benefit in the future, who strive to do the right things. But I would like us as parents, as patients, this one, it's more difficult for all of us women. How do I now, as a parent, as a mother, teach my child, and at what age do I teach them about the unacceptable and acceptable behaviors when we talk sexual abuse? Because I think this one, it's more difficult for all of us. It's not simple. I had thought as patients, when you were talking about cognitive behaviors, you will talk about a child whom I hear they can lie because they've heard about this thing. So sometimes a mother is thinking that the child is lying. So, but how do I now teach my child these things and not make them aware to use this against someone that they do not like in their household? Any one of you can take the question. Maybe let's allow us patience so that she can finish with the cognitive behavior as she adds to the behaviors of a child.
What I was saying is, I always say, kids can fantasize about everything, but kids would not fantasize about sex if they have not experienced it or been exposed to sexual behavior. So we should not be saying that they're lying because they've heard about it. But my take is, I would always advise that we can start as early as when the child can talk. We might not be talking about sex, but we might be talking about the child's awareness of their body, which might mean that we might use something that we call a social worker's robot technique. The robot technique, you would have your green, your orange, and your red. So you will say to your child, if somebody else touches you, so you put colors to the part of your body or part of the child's body. To say if somebody else touches you in your ears, you can put that person in green. If they touches you on your nipples, that person you put in an orange. If somebody touches you, your private parts and these private parts, this person will put them in the red. So it means it's a no-go area. So as and when we do that, kids tend to understand that I should not allow anybody who would be touching me in the red line. And what are the red lines in terms of that? And that in itself assists you in having a simpler conversation, because you are able to go back to the child and say, had anybody touched you in your red part of the body? What is your understanding of their touch? And this questions become simple than us talking about the child having sex, or this is a vagina, this is a penis, this is what you do. So we don't talk about that, but we use the language that is simpler at an early age, so that it becomes easier when the child grow up. Now we start talking about issues around sexual intercourse, safe sex, and other things. But it is important that we use the techniques with our kids, and techniques will also assist us in understanding whether bana ba rena are safe, whether with the relatives or with the friends, because sometimes kids are abused by the helpers that we leave them with, their relatives and the neighbors. So as and when we have that conversation, it should not be because the case has been reported on radio or on television that the child now has been raped that you want to have that conversation. It is always going to be awkward. But if you have a conversation, a morning Saturday conversation with your child, the child is able to take or is able to absorb that information and can be able to understand, and you're able to revise and say, do you remember the conversation that we have? How is it working? Would you need any improvement? And if you know that you cannot talk to your child about that, please make sure that you get a person, a reliable person, to actually talk to your kids about that information. But the other challenge that we are having against us, Roland, we have parents that communicate with their children out of fear. So kids are already aware that now this is a parent who is afraid, who comes and say, if you have sex, you're going to fall pregnant. You're going to have HIV. So kids already understand that this conversation is on the basis of fear that the parent has. So I'm urging parents that when you communicate with your kids, communicate with them not at an anxiety level, but at a level where it's just information sharing. Of important again, ask your kids, what is it that already they know? Because already our child, sometimes they know something. And when you go there, you tell them, and now you're telling them, now they have to compare your information and the teacher's information. So ask them, what is it that you know about this? And add information and rectify that is not right. Add what you feel the kids still need to know with regard to that. Thank you.
Patience, that is a wonderful advice you have given us. I see our viewers also are appreciating the strategy for the robots, because it's one thing that baffles most of us, most especially we were not raised the way nowadays things should be done, because when we were raised back then there was no information about a whole lot of things, but today, because of technology, all the information is out there. I always say, when I wake up and I see my child having a gadget, I am so fearful. I say, so my child has got the whole world before them. You talk China, my child can be there. You talk Japan, all these places, which even myself, I've not been personally there. And if someone was to take me and just plant me, imagine in Beijing, in the city, and say, navigate your way out, make a life here, it will be so challenging. So on a daily basis with our children having those gadgets, that's what's happening. That's how I view it, because the child is there in this global world and they can access any information. But then it says we have to be intentional on how we teach our children. Is these strategies that says Patience you have given us that will help us? Says Mary, I know there are cases of abuse, not from seniors, but from the same age group. And I have observed and followed through certain cases to say most of them is because a child, as his Patience was saying, has been exposed to things which they are not yet ready to be exposed to. What will be your advice in terms of parents who think it's normal to sleep with a child until they are 5 years or 6, or sometimes the child says, oh, I want to sleep with mommy, and they agree? What I have a belief that that is very dangerous to a child. It's just abuse on its own. What will you like to say, and what type of cases are you meeting under such circumstances?
Those ones, we don't have much cases on them because not that they are not happening, but because of how they are downplayed.
Yes.
Yeah, they will be taken as if they were just playing until one parent get very concerned because it's not stopping. We need to, I think as parents, we need to understand the child's development, to say at this age they can understand this kind of behavior. At this age they can see whatever is happening in the house and be able to protect them against our own self. That's unfortunate that we have to protect children from ourselves as well. So let's learn about the development. Let's understand what the child can understand at whatever age they are at, so that we can be able to protect them. As Patience was saying, that we need to be able to talk to our children. Yeah. So when we talk to them and engage with them, not us talking, but engaging with them, because normally we have a tendency of just speaking without actually wanting them to respond, or just taking it serious when they talk to us. So we don't even get to learn what they know. So when we engage with them, we will realize that now at this age, this is what they can understand. This is what they're able to observe. Yeah, and with kids, they're curious. So when they see something, they just want to play it out. Yeah. So we need to be able to understand, and when we understand them, so when we engage with them, we'll be able, even if we don't understand their development in terms of the textbook kind of thing, but when we're engaging with them and talking to them, we'll be able to see what they know and what they can do, or what they can understand, so that at that point we realize that I shouldn't be dressing in front of them anymore. I shouldn't be doing this in front of them anymore, and they protect them from ourselves. Just that's unfortunate.
Yeah. It's unfortunate that even myself, when I came through to this service, I thought it should be someone out there who can be a potential perpetrator, not looking at myself as a mother, that I can also be a perpetrator.
Yes.
To violence or abuse for my children. But thank you so much for the awareness. We are getting learned, and we, of course, will never remain the same. And as we continue with our conversation, in terms of awareness, when it comes to what can be done, if a child has gone through abuse, and maybe a case now it has been reported and all these things are happening, sometimes we experience that the child will be under a lot of strain. There'll be threats that are being sent to the family. But when I was doing my research, I learned that there are child care centers that the government has throughout the different provinces. What are the services of a child care center? Says Patience, maybe you'd like to take that one?
Thank you. Immediately when the child is exposed to abuse and the case has been reported, the social worker will then immediately do what we call assessment. Assessment would be looking into the safety as well as the risk that are involved if the child is to remain in the household. But what we emphasize more is that we want the child to grow up in the family-orientated environment. It should not be that when we take you to the place of safety, should be the last resort. We should have tried everything. And you'll remember, Sesurulani, as we were growing up, when the social cohesion was still there, your daughter would be taken and go and stay with somebody else, and they would grow up there because the environment would not be conducive here. So we also check into who are among the family members are willing to actually stay with the child while we are busy doing what we call providing parenting skills with the child. But where we don't find any, we then take the child to place of safety, and which we call children's home. And if the child is to be taken there with the mother, we have a shelter in Polokwane, which is a government shelter, which is Kuseleka, where we take the child together with their mother there, then they can go to Kuseleka. But if it's the child alone, then the child will go to children's home where they would get care. But what is important for us is to ensure that as and when they are there, we are busy assisting the family to go back to its normal the way in which the family was. So it assists us in providing those parenting skills. So when the children are there, they're able to go to school, they get also the programs, they also receive services that are there, your social work services as well as your healthcare services. So it is important that we should taking the children to place of safety as the last resort. But what I wanted to also emphasize, as Sis was saying there, is with the new amendment says the child who is exposed to domestic violence It means it's intentionally caused to a child where the child see or hear domestic violence or experience the effect of domestic violence. So the child can go and report the case if they see or hear about domestic violence. So it is important that as parents, we try as far as possible not to expose our kids to domestic, because immediately the children knows about this act and its amendment, they would then go and report the parents. So we want to have the normal life in our families to ensure that our kids are protected against domestic violence and GBV in general.
Because some of the parents, because of economic benefits that they're getting from their partners, we have been talking about women or partners wanting to be accepted in society by having a partner. Sometimes we stay in these relationships even when it's not working. So I think to a level, it's fair enough for the children to be given this power to be able to go and report it, because we are agreeing that children are the ones who suffers the most. And because they are the future of our nation, they will tend to replicate this. So we will never be in a position to fight it and say we are comfortable, we've fought it, because it will replicate as and when they're exposed. They do it when they are old. But says Mary, how is it possible for a person to report, when we're talking about reporting for the children on these amendments that have been brought in, for a person to report abuse and remain anonymous?
Yes, I think according to the Children's Act, you can report and remain anonymous, so you don't have to give out your name. And the people that you have reported to need to keep you safe as well, because somebody might take it as this is an attack against them. Yeah, so you need to, so most people will not report if they know that you're going to expose them. And the people that they are reporting may not take it very, very well, because people get to be defensive and want to protect what they think it's theirs. So they wouldn't appreciate you reporting their issues. Yeah. And it might, how do we know how, if we're not putting your life at risk, if you are known that you have reported, but you'll be doing the right thing. Yeah.
But now I've reported and I wish to stay anonymous. Won't I be called to be a witness in court?
I don't think that would be necessary, because they, the people that you have reported to, whether it's social workers or policemen, they need to investigate. So the case will go on according to what the investigation has revealed. So you may also say, I don't wanna testify in court because you don't feel safe.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's no way that I can be a witness but anonymous.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that.
Says
Maybe that
Patience?
can be done in some way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Says Patience?
Hello. Yes, you can report the case and remain anonymous, and you can also testify. And you'll realize that when you go to court, you'll see you might be referred to Miss X and Miss so and so, and you testify in camera, and your details remain sealed and protected as well as confidential. Again, remember, you have your child line, as Mary is indicating. You have your GBV command centers where you can report and also still say, I would not want to be known, I want to remain anonymous. But yes, you can go and testify without the perpetrator knowing that you have testified.
Awareness on this very sensitive topic that affects our children. You know, our children are the future of our nation. A nation that does not take care of their children, it will not exist in the future, because all of us, we shall pass on. But it is what we're investing on our children that will take this nation, South Africa, forward. But as it stands now, I do not have confidence, because this stats keeps on, every year we're told it's increasing instead of it coming down because of all that the awareness that is being brought in, all the different legislations that government is passing, our president declaring, putting more resources in all these things. But I realize one thing that is missing, it's us, the willingness of the nation, the willingness of the community to say, we stand up. I do not care. When I see it happening, even if it's not to my child, I have a responsibility to help to take care of it, because who knows? You may be living it and only to find that in the future, that very person whom you saw it happening to becomes a partner to your child. And now your child is married to someone who's damaged mentally because you turned a blind eye. You said it's not happening to me. So when we're a nation, we should understand the responsibility that we all ought to play in getting society to be what we desire for it to be. Thank you so much. I would like to invite you, Sis Mary. What is it that we did not talk about? I know the time was not enough, but I'm glad we have the awareness. And I see with the comments from the ladies that they appreciate your contribution in this pandemic that we're trying to fight. What is it that you would like to tell us that the child welfare does that we did not talk about, which you know is very important?
I think one thing that I would like to say before we close is that I think as parents, we need to move away from staying in relationships that are not good for us for the sake of children, because we are not doing any favors to them. We're actually damaging them. As to our child welfare, we are a designated child protection organization, meaning that we have the powers to remove children who are in need of care into safe places, whether it's with other relatives or it's with the CYCC. We also more into prevention. We have had several programs that focus on prevention or awareness as well. So we were involved with a program for a boy child.
Okay.
Yeah, where we were upskilling them with or equipping them with skills and knowledge about GBV so that they stand up against. So we have worked with a lot of youth from Vembe and Mopani to be able to do that. We also talk to community leaders about children as well. So we raise awareness with the community leaders, with the parents, and and whoever is involved with with children. So that has been our services throughout the communities. So it does still seem like it's a losing battle because we are actually protecting children from their own families, from the people that are supposed to be protecting them. So, and it's a very difficult job to do because those are the places where they're supposed to be loved and feel safe. And we trying to protect them and from the things that happen in secret, the things that we are not exposed to as they are happening. So there isn't a way of coming in before it happens. So it normally comes in when it has happened, which it's
then the responsibility is with us as the parents to prevent it.
To get as much
you can
as much knowledge and information about this and to try to develop ourselves better as parents. Because I think I heard it from this program that we don't come into the world with the knowledge of how to be a parent. We learn as we go, unfortunately, and we can either be good at it or be bad at it. So let's find as much information as we can so that we do not expose our children to things that shouldn't be happening in the first place.
Thank you, Sis Mary. So women, let us go out and get more information. The time that we had is not enough, but what she's saying is it is us who can prevent it. Government and all these NGOs can only come in when it has happened. Although they are trying to build up skills and resilience around this pandemic, and I'm grateful that you talk about the boy child. For a very long time, we always spoke about the girl child, and that was a mistake that as a nation we did. But I'm grateful that I've seen a lot of organizations trying to rectify that. It's only when you realize that you have done a sin of omission that you repent and do the right thing. Says Patience, can you hear us? Can we hear your parting shots? What would you like to leave the audience with?
Thank you, Sister. Maybe number one, it's as parents, more especially mothers, we need to take responsibility on how we raise our children. I mean, we raise the boy child in a masculinity way to say a boy child will only go and look after the livestock or cattle, or the boy child will only go and play soccer, while the girl child is domesticated. So the boy child grow up with an understanding that the girl child is there at their own service. Then you find it very difficult as and when you grow up, you come back, you are tired, and the boy child says, but I want food, I want to eat, because they were trained in a way that they understand a girl child or a woman being domesticated and being there at their own service. So we need to change the way in which we raise our kids. The toys that we buy them, you buy a boy child a car, and if the car is not working well, the boy child throw it away. You buy a girl child a teddy bear, and the girl child learns at an early age to communicate and express their emotions and feelings with those teddy bears. So it's easier for them. And you hear people saying, oh, Basadi, they talk too much. Women talk too much, because women grow up having an understanding of having a communication, conversation, and emotionally, purposefully expressing their own emotions. So it is important that we need to go back and check how is it that we're training our kids. Of important again, we have programs as DSD that involve issues around parenting programs, your men championing change, your behavioral program, your behavior modification, your anger management, your life skills. Those programs are meant for people to be engaged, not only when there are problems, even before we have challenges. And one thing that we don't do well, especially us as Black community, we're not good in consulting. We only consult when we have problems. It is important to take your kids for consultation, even if there's nothing that is there, just to have a conversation with somebody else who is neutral, not to wait for problem, and now the child cannot even know where the problem have started. I also have some of the techniques, Roland, that I would share. I'm sure that I will go into the group and share those techniques, the other technique that will also understand or assist the parents in assessing whether their child are safe or are not safe. The other one that I want to emphasize is that when you feel that your child, or you suspect that your child has been raped, as department, we have the Tutuzela care centers where you'll find your social workers, your NPA, your SAPs, your psychologist, your forensic nurse, to go there just to find an information about issues around rape, because they deal with cases of rape. And you have social workers in all the police station in the province, where you can go there and find assistance to social workers. As Osiri has already said, we have our NGOs, CSOs that are readily available to actually assist and advocate for the rights of children, as well as the right of women and men. Thank you.
Of your time, because we started a little bit late, but what stands out for me, it's, did you ever understand why a woman is able to talk and express their emotions? Because of the teddy bear that they were given. Because a woman, as they were born, they were given someone to talk to. And a man was never given anyone. He's a loner. And we're surprised when the man is not talking. So let us change the narrative. We can change the narrative. The world is evolving. It needs us to be intentional and evolve with it and become better and better mothers, better parents, so that we can have a better tomorrow. Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you to our technical team tonight. I have with me Mr. Musamangani and Butinaison Gwambiwa. They are here, of course, our executive producer, Pastor Strike, is with us throughout. We'd like to say thank you, and thank you, Sesnyeleti, for producing the show. We appreciate, and I trust that the Prudent Women, you have learned so much. And I would like to entice you in the next coming 2 weeks. One of the days there, you should just be ready. Keep on checking our Facebook page and the YouTube page, Bold Moves Radio pages for a recipe. We are going to have a Christmas special. As Prudent Women, we say we are not all about talking, but we are all about taking care of our families. So we're going to have a cooking show. We would like to have 2 meals. We're going to have a main dish and a dessert. We have one of the Prudent Women who's a chef who would like to share with us her special dish for Christmas. So if you were frustrated, there's no need, if you didn't have that money to have, I hear nowadays they say Christmas with Mang, and you pay so much money. So if you do not have it, join us in the next 2 weeks. The show will be coming and we'll share the recipe for you to be ready. And we shall see you next week, same time, 6 o'clock on Sunday. This is Bold Moves Radio. Have a blessed week.